Hello and welcome to The Good, the Bad and the Worst, a podcast where we watch spooky movie trilogies and attempt to exercise them in our never-ending crusade to discover which movie we should condemn back to hell. I'm your host, Bathsheba, and joining me as always, are my own Ed and Lorraine Warren.
I'm Griner, and boys, I've received a last-minute message from the Vatican. They've approved this podcast.
And I'm Luke Morgan, and I'm here to do some devil shit.
Right. It's exactly 3:07. It's Halloween night we're recording this, which is fitting. It's the last of our trilogies for the spooky season. Halloween, All Hallows Eve, October, the evil month, and so on. We're doing The Conjuring. It's a little franchise that has truly just kept going and going and going. I know, just watching these and looking into the expanded universe, I forgot how big it is.
Spawned so many other little things.
Yeah, just spin-offs and add-ons, and you kind of slap the name on just the Conjuring universe, and it adds $1 million in revenue.
You said, I don't know, it feels like they almost planned it from the start, right? Like, you've got this little room of horrors, and just every one of those could be its own movie. Each of these movies has a little featurette of what could be a character from another movie. It's like, it's I don't know, if someone thought of that from the start, they're a marketing genius. They need to do the DCU or something.
It's a clever idea having these characters in Lorraine. It's like they're just endless cases, right?
Yeah.
This is a tried formula, just like detective stuff. Or X-Files is like you've got the stack of the X-Files. Ed and Lorraine have got a stack of cases, so you could just do all of them. Amityville, these ones just never ending. Did you guys have much history with this franchise? Like, had you seen any of these movies? Conjurings, The Nun, Annabelle.
No, this is my first viewing of them. I would typically avoid this type of movie, and I'm happy to get into that at some point. Maybe when you ask a certain question, I'll get into that further.
All right, make a note.
I haven't seen any of the the CCU or anything like that, but I had seen the trailer for The Nun 2 before Equalizer 3, I believe.
Me too.
And that scared me a lot.
Yeah.
To the point that when I found out The Nun was going to be in these movies, I was very upset and very scared. And I'm kind of like, I like horror movies. There are a lot of horror movies I like. I try not to watch them because I just have this thing that, I don't know, I torture myself. So like if I watch something and it freaks me out a bit, for the next 20 years of my life, I'll just be sitting there in the dark and just keep picturing it in my head. And I'm like, oh God, wait. And I scare myself, So, but I'm glad I watched these films. I'll get into it when we discuss them. But yeah, I'd never seen anything like that, and I'm kind of intrigued now to watch the spin-offs. So,
sorry to butt in here, but do you guys have a movie that has stuck with you as that still haunts you to this day?
Yes.
Because I remember being 5 years old and being in the video shop and seeing the cover for a movie called Pumpkinhead and just being endlessly tormented by that monster on that cover of that movie. I've never seen... I should watch that movie to get it out of my brain, maybe. But I'm still haunted by that Pumpkinhead.
My whole life, and I know it's probably not considered a horror in this day and age. I haven't seen it since I was a kid, but I saw it when I was a kid. My dad was watching it. Frighteners.
I watched that last night.
And it's not really a horror, is it? It's more comedy. Yeah. So, but watching it as a kid, and I just remember a number being carved into someone's forehead or something like that, and it terrified me to the point that I was very, very scared of the Frighteners, and I've never watched it since then. But it haunted me as a child, and still does.
No, yeah. Quick caveat: the Frighteners is it's in the vein of Poltergeist, that kind of Zemeckis Spielbergian horror, family fun horror. Whereas somehow it was made for the whole family can watch this movie, and they shouldn't have because there's pretty terrifying stuff in it. But it was safe enough that parents were like, yeah, let's take our kids on a Saturday in the 80s, or in this case the 90s. But it's not really, it's not not a scary movie. But if you're 6 years old and you see it, it's absolutely terrifying.
Funny you say that. I saw Poltergeist for the first time ever this week as well.
Right on.
Just because literally was in a motel room in another town, and my brother, who's older than me. He saw it on the TV, and so he put it on in the motel room as I was trying to go to sleep, because he likes to have the TV on as he sleeps. I don't.
Yep.
And
Puts on
Poltergeist.
Poltergeist,
Poltergeist was the movie he decided to watch.
as one
And I'd
does.
never seen it, so I laid there watching it as I was trying to go to sleep, and I was just like, oh man, I was like, this is so Spielbergy, without knowing that Spielberg was involved in it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was entertaining. Funny you mentioned it.
Yeah, there you go. To answer your question, I think I definitely would. You've caught me at a time where I can't really think of it off the top of my head. I've kind of saturated myself with so much horror now that anything that I was sort of haunted from or was scared of as a kid, I've engaged with. So I can't think of I can't immediately think of anything that did, but I know there would definitely be a few. Like
I mean, as an adult, Hereditary stuck with me. So
yeah, like I think there are still moments of Hereditary where I look back and like that is probably the most terrifying movie I've seen.
I can't like escape it. So
Yeah, but things like I remember like this, the Ghostface from Scream as a kid scared me. There's definitely I know I guess possession movies in general are kind of disturbing, and so these movies kind of aren't complete. Like they are, but they're not. They're not. I watched a few more for Halloween, and I watched one called The Last Exorcist, which is like a sort of a pure possession film. And there's something just very unsettling about that, and we'll talk about that a bit later. But I think more than any one killer or franchise, it was kind of just like certain types of horror or vibes of horror that really terrified me as a kid. That I don't know. I guess I'll have to interrogate that further. But bit of info. So that the broader franchise of this does include we're going to be talking only about Conjuring, Conjuring 2, and The Conjuring: The Devil Made Me Do It. But there are other movies in this. There's the Annabelle movies. That's another trilogy we'll hopefully never do. There's The Nun 1 and 2. There's also The Curse of La Llorona. And that's all for now, but I'm sure there'll be another Conjuring. I'm sure there'll be another Annabelle, and I'm sure they will do any number of those cool little things in the museum, right? Like it just seems like guaranteed money.
Cool.
Super cool.
I thought that was cool.
Just can't imagine having that shit in my house, but anyway.
Well, a priest blesses it once a month, so it's all good. It's all G.
Of course.
Annabelle's powerless. All right, let's do some stats.
Stats.
The Conjuring, 2013, budget of $20 million, made $319 million. Metascore of 68. The Conjuring 2 in 2016, budget of $40 million, made $321 million, so almost the same. Metascore of 65. And then The Conjuring: The Devil Made Me Do It. It's 2021, budget of $39 million, made $206 million. Metascore of 53. So all massive hits.
Yeah. I've been down on horror movies in the past, but the thing is, they're very profitable. Like they can be made very cheaply, and they seem to make a lot of money regularly. Like in times when other movies aren't doing well, like when superhero movies are down or whatever, horror movies still standing strong.
Yep.
Throughout COVID, I feel like there was heaps of horror movies released during that time still, even though everything else was stopped. And I guess the thing that happens with that is that studios are happy to take a risk on a horror movie because they seem to be profitable no matter where they like how good they are. And they seem to be cheap to make. And that's where we get these interesting movies from. Not that these movies fit into this category, but necessarily. But I don't know, Barbarian from a few years ago comes to mind as something that was quite unique and really good. And obviously someone took a chance on that movie somewhere along the way. And I feel bad about being down on horror movies because I feel like that's where we're at least getting some interesting creativity out of Hollywood these days.
You guys even yourselves out because Conan's like really into horror, so it's a good
plan.
All
day, every day is horror day in my house.
Conan's down on every other genre of film.
That's right.
Yeah. He's
Any
like,
genre
there should be more horror in MCU. There should be more horror in this Dora the Explorer.
When we were watching The Mighty Ducks, I was like, man, imagine if this is a horror though, and then the just killing some of the kids.
Yeah,
it'd be a better movie.
Anthropomorphic duck killing everyone. That'd be sick.
The Mighty Duck.
That'd be great. No, you're exactly right. Like we've talked about it before. Horror is kind of it's like the safest bet. And the story of the last couple of years has been the story of horror at the box office because everything's been dying. COVID's sort of laid havoc to everything, and horror was the one that historically, it's just been pretty easy to do because you can just do a few $1 million. Traditionally, they have small, like no actors, kind of like goofy effects. They don't need to be. They're usually pretty cheesy. And like haunted houses with Conjuring, good example. Like you can, one location, so there's very little scouting or anything you have to do. It's just you get one location, one group of people. They're just kind of like
Yeah,
yeah,
and you don't even always need effects, right? Like you can just film a dark corner in a room for 5 minutes, and here you
yeah.
go.
Like one of the most interesting stories of the past couple of years. I think it was last year. Came out as a Skinnamarink, which is an experimental horror film. Came out, ended up making I think over $1 million. It was budget of like 30,000. It was just this YouTuber doing experimental stuff, and the movie it's got a lot of criticism and a lot of acclaim, both of which are valid. But it's just that it's just shots of dark corners and weird angles and ominous stuff. And it's like this. It was this guy and the equipment in his house that he grew up in.
Mm.
And like that was the talking point of like the whole middle part of the year, really, amongst like because I think it was at South by Southwest and it got leaked and so it went viral. It's just, yeah, horror's the only franchise that can really do that. It's like I don't know, it's the safest bet, right?
Mm.
And I can see why people get upset with it because it is just often
And
it's their dime a dozen, and so the quality's often low.
but really, and like that's the thing, like there's the whole thing that budget, it isn't too much, but it's also just plot. Like you don't really need like a big team of writers to come up with an interesting horror story, if you know what I mean. Like really,
That's exactly right.
there's horror stuff that happens, people get killed. Just show it in a nasty way. Or there's
Yeah,
obviously horror that does really good stories and stuff like that, but a lot of it is subtle and it's like it's not really something that you write out as this like complicated thing. So
that's right. I was thinking about it with this season because I've been trying to watch a horror a night for the past couple of weeks, and just that like how low my ceiling is for it. Like even a bad horror movie, I'm like, yeah, I'll give that a go.
hmm,
And unless it's actively bad, I'll be like, it's fine. Whereas there's no other genre that I will do that with.
yeah.
And we talked about it before. It's because it's more of an experience. So like horror creates a visceral response in the body rather than a drama creates an emotional like comedy and horror are the only two that sort of do that. The rest are more cerebral or just kind of more I don't know, just basically emotional. Action is fun, drama is emotional. Like thriller is interesting, but comedy and horror are the only two that make you sort of feel these things that we actively pursue. And so yeah, you can do absolutely nothing that's good, just do basic mechanics of scares, and you're still like, yeah, I'm into that because I want to be scared. It's
If
a
you can
very
scare someone, then you've kind of done an effective job.
exactly right.
Yeah.
And your mileage may vary if you get scared easily or not, but yeah, I think that's why they have such a longevity. Um, anyway, should we get into it?
Yes, let's get into it.
All right. The Conjuring. In 1971, the pair and family move into a new home in Rhode Island and begin to experience disturbing events. Unable to find respite in the long arms of the law, they seek the only people who can help them. Handsome couple and paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren. Now, Ed, Lorraine, I don't know which one of you is which again, but let's talk about possession. Are you guys, because these movies, especially the first one, I forgot that it was actually quite a spiritual movie, right? It ends with a scene. It ends with a title card that says, "The devil exists, God exists, and for us as people, our very destiny hinges upon which one we like to follow." I can't remember a film since maybe Passion of the Christ in '04 that was like, that kind of is like, hey, this is a Christian message at the end of it. Now, I don't think James Wan's a Christian. I don't think anyone involved was necessarily religious, but it's like, it's kind of got that clear point that it makes at the end, right?
Mm.
I wanted to get your guys' thoughts, both what your beliefs around the devil and God and all that is, but how you take sort of spiritual horror, horror dealing with the devil and demonic forces, because I think if you don't believe in it, it's fine. You can just be like, yeah, it's just fun. It's kind of like Monsters in the Dark. It's just all fiction. But if you do believe in it, it can become a sort of a loaded. It can suspend your disbelief, or it can enhance it depending on where you fall. Right? Like, Luke, I'll start with you. What's your
Mm.
background with it?
So I feel like I haven't probably even really watched any possession films before these, or anything that dealt with that. But Something I just want to touch on before I go into answering that is like something that surprised me watching these films is I was like, wow, like possession horror and this genre really wasn't scary. Like
Okay.
to me, I found these like the least horror films I've ever watched, almost to the point where it was there's almost part of me where I'm like, it's the kind of now comfort films. I kind of enjoyed the ride. Like there was a part of it,
Okay.
and I know it's meant to like. There was a part of it where I was like, oh, I don't know, I felt safe. Once Ed and Lorraine were in the house, I kind of felt safe all the time. Where I was like, they're there, the experts are there, like they've seen this shit before. They know what they're doing, and they're cooking breakfast, and I was like, oh, this is a fun film. I was like, this is great. And I feel like, and it goes on as the films go on, so I don't want to like discuss my thoughts for all of it, but they're quite safe, as in I don't feel like anything really bad ever happens. Like we don't get many victims. It's not like, oh wow, like the body count of these demons are really bad. Like in the first one, I feel like the dog died, but it's not like we didn't
Mm.
even really even see how messed up the dog was. It was just like the dog's dead. That's it. So it was kind of like, other than that, I felt like it was very much like a, "Ooh, I'm a scary person. I've been dead 100 years. Look at me. I'm pulling a scary face." And I kind of was like,
Is it?
or like there's tension stuff with the woman holding the kid underneath the house or whatever, and she turns to look at her. But at the end of the day, it was kind of like, it was just like, oh, it's somebody with makeup, obviously, and they're just like, "Oh, look at me. I'm scary." I really didn't find these scary at all. Um, the nun was scary. Yeah, the nun was a bit creepy, and the stuff in the second one with the nun. But yeah, other than that, I didn't find them scary, and I just was like, it might be due to the fact that, like, PSA, like I'm not very religious personally,
Mm.
so maybe it is that thing where it's like I didn't have a belief in it, if you know what I mean. Like I was like, okay, this is fun. And I was like, it's interesting that they said it's a true story. I had to Google it afterwards because I didn't know who, um, you know, Ed and Lorraine were.
Mm.
To the point where I was like, wait a minute, is it based on a true story, or did they just do that to try and spook me at the start? And then
Based on a
looking
true
into it,
story.
and then
Mm.
when reading about the real ones, I just had this thing where I was like, okay, I was like, I kind of feel like the real ones are kind of crackpots, and like, or taking people for a ride. Like, I struggle to find the real belief in that possession sort of stuff.
Mm.
Um, and whether that's because like I'm not very religious or because I don't believe in the devil too much.
S-
Um,
So
yeah,
the mechanics didn't just like the basic mechanics and the tools of the movie didn't scare you, like the I don't know, like the door, the blankets, the jump, the hide and clap scenes,
there
like.
were there were a couple of things like, okay, I know one of the scenes where the girl's sitting on the bed and pointing in the corner of the room.
Yep.
There was tension in that, definitely tension in that, and all that sort of stuff. But I guess because there's not really many jump scares, there's a bit of tension. But I feel like probably because of the horror films I've seen, I it didn't touch near those levels of like, I don't know. Once you've seen Hereditary, I feel like other stuff isn't as bad. Like some of that stuff in that, which deals with some similar themes, I guess you could say in certain aspects, I found scary. But in this one, it just like I couldn't take someone floating around the house seriously. And I don't know if because I've seen that in, parody films where
Mm.
I see someone getting thrown around the room, I kind of chuckle and smile a bit where I'm just like, okay, this person's floating now, and it's like, oh, or a little girl talking with like a grown man voice, and it's like, I'm Bob the Builder, and it's just like, okay,
That
this is
never
funny.
happens.
I didn't find it scary, and it surprised me how much I wasn't scared. I eventually turned the lights off because I was like, hey, I can handle this. And I turned it just off subtitles only, like
Oh,
Corona was doing. And yeah, it wasn't too bad. But I don't know if that comes from my belief or lack of or what, but
see, that's
it
interesting. Yeah,
it
sorry.
definitely felt like very Christian, like focused. Like it was very much like these guys can beat them because they're strong believers, and like you need the cross and you need this sort of stuff and the holy water. And I
Mm.
enjoy that as a genre. Like I enjoyed these films 100%.
Mm.
But yeah, I definitely got that message where I was like, okay, I guess possession is that, but it is. I was like, it is very religious focused, obviously.
So that's interesting, just because it's not a religious element, but this movie got an R rating because the MWP or whatever, the censors basically said it's too scary. And like you say, there is no blood, there's no death. But they actually like
Yeah,
this movie was going for a PG-13, and they're like, no, this needs to be R because
that's
it's
surprising.
too frightening. See,
How good does that look on your marquee, though, right? Like, isn't that the best advertising a horror movie you can get?
Too scary for PG. And like, just quickly, I think I really like this movie. I think it's really scary because it builds just a sense of dread. Like, it's a form of horror, but it's not the jump scares, it's not the body count, it's just the sense of unease and the slow building of, everything's wrong, and you were just constantly seeing this looming sense grow and grow and grow, and it's like, it's just winding you up like a coil, and eventually it's going to snap. And I really like that. I really respond to that, I think. But I think that's great. Grana, what did you think? And what's your...
So, yeah, I had an epiphany watching these movies that... Because I always thought I hated horror, right? Like, I always was like, I'm not a horror guy, I don't like horror. But I think I actually do like horror, and I don't like possession horror. I don't like spiritual horror. I think that's what I don't like. And I guess to your point, I think that comes from... I'm a Christian, and I was raised in a very conservative Christian household where you're always told to, flee from these types of things, don't, don't play with Ouija boards, don't invite the devil in, basically, is the message. And these movies really, really trigger that in me. And like anything with this type of possession horror or spiritual horror. Now, I'll admit I didn't find this first one very scary. I did confess to you guys that I did try and make it as unscary as possible. I read the plot before I watched it. I watched it with subtitles on, and I was kind of bored by it, right? Like that, those tools were effective. Like, I can see the merit in this movie. There's definitely moments like where the girl's sitting on the bed looking in the dark corner. There's a few really good moments like that, but the rest of the movies I bought in. I didn't look it up ahead of time. I think we still had subtitles on because we always watch everything with subtitles, but like I let the room get dark. I watched them at night. Like, I did all the things you should do. Yep. And like,
right, you read up the whole plot, didn't you?
Of the first one, I did. Yes.
Oh, true.
Yeah, I read everything.
Nothing's going to catch me by surprise.
That's right. I'm not going to be surprised. There's not going to be any jump scares. This is going to be perfect. But yeah. So I guess that's where I sit with this type of horror, because I realize, like, I love lots of horror movies. Like, I mean, I don't know what Conan might turn his nose up at these being called horror movies, but like The Thing and Alien are some of my favorite movies ever.
Like, they're the granddaddies. Of course they're horror.
I know. But like, and like Jordan Peele films, like all of these, like, and even just like Barbarian, just random horror movies I've really, really enjoyed. But I realize none of those are like this spiritual possession type stuff. And like, I remember another movie that really scared me when I was young, and it hit me at the right age, but with Blair Witch Project. Like, absolutely terrified me. Like, I was just barely a teenager when that movie came out, or when I saw that movie anyway. Oh, anyway, maybe we'll do... Is there a trilogy of those? Maybe we'll go through those at some point.
To do it. I'm so keen.
I've never watched it. The
original, the OG.
But sorry, I just wanted to say also to Luke's point where, I don't know, because you didn't find it scary because you don't believe it. The thing for me that I don't find believable is them combating it. So anytime they're like combating, I'm like, I kind of turn my nose up at that. I'm like, oh, this is stupid. And I read up on all the stuff they're doing, like, oh, these guys are charlatans. Yeah, that's where the other roll of that dice goes, I guess.
Like, I want to talk about it a lot more with the third one, because I have a thing I want to discuss about with the third one, but here's the, like, I need to do some deep thinking on it, because like, when I was younger, I was really terrified by the idea of paranormal activity, and I didn't want to watch them films because I found them scary. I think I watched half of the first one, and that idea of like,
First
like a
one's great.
ghost or something is happening in the house, that scared me a lot, and it's not like that I find that I can't suspend my disbelief. I feel like if I watch paranormal activity, I'd be scared because I'd believe it, and at night I'd be like, okay, what's going on? I feel like these films definitely cross that line for me to suspend my disbelief, where I don't buy it, so it doesn't scare me, because I'm just like, no, I don't believe like someone gets possessed and they're floating and they're yelling at it and talking and communicating with it. Because I feel like, as much as there's horror that's unrealistic and all that sort of stuff, I feel like in this thing with this thing, and it's based on a true story, and be like, okay, well, why is that not a thing that people know about more? Like, why is that not something that's on video, like a clear thing of something happening? And why isn't it not big a thing of like, shit, we got another exorcism to do? Like,
Yeah, I'm surprised you couldn't hear me rolling my eyes when it came up on the screen based on a true story. Like, yeah.
yeah. When it came up, I turned my wife. I was like, "Oh, I don't like that. I don't like that." And when they first go into the house and they open the board in the storeroom and stuff like that, there was tension. I feel like the first half of the first film there was definitely tension, but I think once the threat was uncovered and it was like dealing with it, it lost all fear for me. But yeah,
Yeah,
I
okay.
still enjoyed the film. Still enjoyed it, but yeah.
Yeah. See, I've talked at length about how like you need to watch you need to watch movies on the terms they set for you. Movies and TV they often need to be watched the way they try and tell a story. And I'm a real like I don't know like a real sub when it comes to movies. I will not try. I just hand myself over. So in like any mystery movie, I will actively not try to solve it, and even I can't think about it. And so people are always like, "Oh, the twist." People like the twist was so obvious. I'm like, I genuinely couldn't even fathom how you figured that out because I hand myself over to movies and I want to sort of be absorbed in it. And this is because there's a duality of play this movie. One is that religious element, like it's being told as a true story. It makes it very it states this is a true story. And to your point, Griner, it's saying that the reality is God and the devil exist and they are in this sort of constant battle. And with the power of the Catholic Church and iconography and study, you can combat the devil. And that's where I brush up against as well. I don't believe that. I'm a Christian, but I don't believe I don't believe there's this sort of ongoing battle that can be interfered with by special, by Vatican ordained exorcists. Like, I believe possession is real in a way, and exorcisms are real in a way, but not to this extent, not to this like dramatic sort of thing. But the movie does a really good job, I think, in like the mechanics of telling the horror. It has the opening crawl where it's like looks like typewriter font, and it's like these are the case
That's
files.
creepy.
These people. So it makes you. It's like it's telling this as if it's truth, and that's the whole point. It's like these are the real people who did this case, and like basically it's saying this is true according to what they said, and that's why you're seeing the devil. That's why you're seeing Bathsheba and these possessions happening because it's like it's truth according to Ed and Lorraine. And so when I watch it, I'm like, I'm actively buying into them saying this is what happened. And so just like because the movie's like it's a really sort of old fashioned horror. Like it's just a creepy house, it's creaky doors, and it's dark corners, and it's hide and clap where it's nothing, and then you see a pair of hands. It's like it's jump scares, but not cheap jump scares. It's just this you sort of know something's going to happen, and then it doesn't, and then it does. It's a kind of like very old fashioned like haunted house stuff, which I think is really effective. And so but there is that tension where I think if you at least for me, when I hand myself over to it and go, cool, I want to be scared on your terms, it works really well. I think any sort of theology explored in it is pretty weak. Like it's very superficial. I just find it so strange that they have that sort of little coda at the end, and it's like the devil exists, God exists. I'm like, I wonder. I guess part of it is to just sell itself as a, try to legitimize itself as a franchise to make people be like, oh, this is a thing. We got to invest in this. So when number 2 comes out, it feels a bit more heavy rather than just this is what they said happened, but it probably didn't happen, right? Like that kind of. If you just actively own up that they were probably charlatans, it loses a lot of its power.
Yeah, like they really smell their own farts, if you will. Like they have that disclaimer at the end, and like they show the case files at the end, and they play the snippets that sound really good, or here's the little photo that actually kind of looks okay. Although it definitely looked like the little girl was jumping on the bed, but anyway.
Oh, number 2, yeah. So, and they do a good job of hinting at that. Like there's that scene in this where they go to that house, and the wife's really scared, and they're like, you hear that, and he treads on the floorboard. It's like a groaning.
Yeah.
And he's like, that pushes against your pipes. The water rushes through. It sounds like a thing. And it's like, oh, so it does a good job of saying, see, they debunk the ones that aren't real, but there are some that are real.
Yeah.
Where it's like, in reality, like it's, you know, a lot of
They
the times.
don't want to believe that there's a demon
Yeah,
there. They're
yes.
like, no, guys, don't worry. When I don't know if the real ones are actually like, oh, yep, hear that floorboard? That's definitely a demon level 2. You're in trouble.
So yeah, like the movie does a good job of sort of saying, hey, these guys aren't complete charlatans. Like it's on the movie's terms, it's like these guys are legit because look, they disprove the fake ones. And so if you just kind of buckle up and go with the ride, for me, it's really effective. But but if you butt up against the legitimacy of the possession thesis it's making, then for sure it won't work.
And here's the thing, like I went along on the ride sort of thing. Like I really liked the characters. And it was like a weird realization where after the movie, I'd be like, okay, so like what was the real case of that? And or I'd see like the real photos of them and stuff, and I'd be like, oh yeah, okay, but the real ones, they're shit. I was like, they're charlatans. I was like, the one in the movie, I believe them. I'm like, oh man, that's a horrific experience they went through. But
Yeah.
yeah.
That's the other strength. Like these movies anchored in like in Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga, right?
And they're awesome.
They're really good. They're doing really good performances where like they've kind of got classic leading energy, but they're also a bit like Patrick Wilson's whole thing has kind of been that he's like the perfect leading man, but there's something slightly wrong about him.
Yeah,
and that's why he's.
It feels like he made a deal with the devil to get his acting chops or something like that, but the monkey paw went the other way and he just never was quite the leading man or something. I don't know.
That's right. Like he should be he should be absolute mainstream big blockbuster star, but he's just never been able to. And Vera Farmiga is a similar thing. Her career started promising. She's kind of now in little side roles, and this is kind of a good niche for them, where it's like they're good-looking people.
Of horror, don't they?
Well, that's what Patrick Wilson is just does horror now. He does this. He does the Insidious. Like
that's when it finished on the streaming app, Amazon or whatever, and I was like going through it was like you might like, and it was like Insidious, and he popped up, and I was like, man, this dude's in everything. I was like, is this part of the universe?
I'm always like, oh, I didn't realize Insidious was part of it, and then it's not. It's not.
They're also like haunted house movies too. Like I don't know. There's a bit of crossover there.
Yeah, there's a lot of copying and stuff, but their relationship in this is kind of the emotional core. You know, it's like because they talk about how she saw something that's haunted her, and like their love feels real. They feel like they genuinely love and care for each other, and are doing this because they believe it. And so they're like, we have to help this family and as a result, we want them to succeed because we care about their marriage. Like we care about them more than the family of kids. Like we understand that it's scary for them, but like at least for me, you're invested in Ed and Lorraine, and you're invested in them solving it because they've got they need to do this to be together and stuff. And so more than the family being okay, I'm like Ed and Lorraine just needing to bust some ghosts. That's what I care about.
And then they bring like their daughter into it as well, which is
I guess as
it makes me invested anyway in what's going on in their family and
some of the scenes I wanted to mention real quick. The hide and clap scene again, I think is a really really effective. Just where kind of like you know that there's no one in the house and the sounds aren't tracking up and just makes you uneasy. The kid in the mirror when they go through he's got that music box.
Yeah.
And just like if you look in it long enough, you'll see Rory appear.
Yeah.
And it kind of watches it and you're waiting for it to happen and you start to see something and then the kid jump scares you and it's a fake out and it's like it's just a good it's kind of a tease, you know. It's still a scare, but it's not the scare you think. There's a lot of those like sort of fake out scares that are good. And I really like the opening of Annabelle. I think the opening it with a completely unrelated sort of story, but still a creepy story with a very creepy looking doll. It's just, I don't know. It is a good choice.
Yeah. Introduce Annabelle for her own spin-off.
Yep.
Yeah, and like you can just tell they were like, we have got potential here.
Yep.
I don't know. Does anything else stand out about this to you guys or no?
We did mention it, but just the girl sitting on the bed staring into the dark corner. Like, I was peering in there trying to see, is there something there?
Turning brightness up. I was like,
am I seeing something? It's pretty effective. It's pretty effective. Costs you nothing to do too. Like,
Yeah.
It's just pointed at a wall. It's just like,
Well, Yeah, no, a lot of staring into the darkness. You're right. So let's get back on the possession topic real because I'm interested. Luke, do you believe there's any sort of like demonic possession or any influence like that in the world? I don't know if we've talked about this in real life. No, I'm interested.
This should be for our upcoming podcast, which is totally happening soon.
We can shelve it for later.
Maybe possession should be one of our topics that we can discuss. But on the grand scheme of things, I don't think so. I don't know. The idea of like The Exorcist used to scare me before, and I haven't looked into that story. And when I'd see like the mention of the Amityville horror or whatever, I was like, oh, that thing.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, like, no, I don't, yeah, I struggle to suspend my disbelief for that.
Well, I'm just telling you now that the devil exists, God exists, and our destiny hinges upon which one we elect to follow. So,
I mean, that's a dope message.
you got to follow one.
It almost made me believe her. I was like, shit. I was like, that's true. I better
You're
sign
like
up for the good side.
Better follow the devil.
Yeah.
I took the right message from that film.
Yeah.
All right. I've got nothing else to really mention. If you guys do, speak now, or should we move on?
Move on.
All right. Conjuring 2. It's 1977. And Ed and Lorraine Warren have been taking ghost names and making ghost gains. But when the Hodgson family begin to experience poltergeist activity in the Enfield Council House in England, the Warrens are forced to travel across the pond and bust some more ghosts. You guys are both well-known defilers. What are your thoughts on Valak / the nun? Luke, you mentioned she terrifies you.
She did. I think I think just it's an iconic look, you know what I mean? Like it's definitely like, oh, this is the thing that's haunting. I don't feel like the first one had that.
Yeah, I agree.
Like this one's like, this is the face of horror. This is what you should be scared of. And it's like, okay, that's scary. The scene where obviously like the shadows going across and the paintings on the wall and the way it looks real with the light turned off, and then it's like you're waiting for the light to turn on and it jump at you, sort of thing. And it never really gets to that point, which is really kind of interesting. But that definitely had a lot of tension. The Nun is scary. I don't really want to watch the Nun trilogy. But I'll be honest, though, the scariest thing of the Nun was in the trailer for the Nun 2 before Equalizer 3. Just that little scene in that thing. I was like, oh man, that was scary. And then in this, it never got to that point for me again. But I think the horror in this one is, worried about Ed dying. So you got that concern.
Yep.
I enjoyed this one. I enjoyed the aspect of like, are they telling the truth? I always thought they were, and I was like, obviously, they're, it's real, surely, but it's constantly trying to push that narrative of like, oh, maybe they're not. Then there's like the evidence of her smashing the plates, and I was like, okay, this seems weird, though. I was like, is the devil making her do that? But
no, that comes later.
But my wife, the second they got in the house and it was like, oh, and this is this and that, my wife was like, oh, I feel like they're lying. She was like, I don't know, I feel like it's a trick and they're scammers and they're not actually haunted or whatever, and that will be the twist. She was waiting for that sort of thing. I always believed him. I believe the victims, and I was like, no, they're telling the truth.
You just said you don't believe in possession and demons. The victims were right. I believe
in the movie. In the movie,
suspending his disbelief. Yeah,
I believed that they were telling the truth and that they thought they were getting haunted. The real life one, if I was watching a documentary, I might be like, oh, come on, she's jumping.
There's a heap of those out there too, like looking this up afterwards.
I should watch that.
They made a bunch in the wake of this. They made so many.
I should watch that. But yeah, I enjoyed this. I enjoyed the family dynamic of them being in the house, trying to prove it and being like, oh, it's not. And basically for the spirit to have tricked them, have been like, no, well, it's this, the old man isn't the thing. Because when the old man was the thing to be scared of, it was like, he's not really scary. He's a grouchy old man that wants to watch bloody Sky News or something, He's just like, my programs, put them back on, He's not that intimidating. But yeah, so I enjoyed this. But again, didn't really get to me. The Nun was scary. That's it.
Fair enough.
I agree. The Nun was scary. Why would you paint that and then hang it up in your house?
Mental.
Yes. Like, I mean, it's bad enough you're keeping that little room of horrors. Like, I hate that. I would not have that anywhere near my house. I'd have that in a warehouse under lock and key or something.
So there's guns on the street, and you're like, I'm not going to pick them up and put them on in my house to keep them safe.
No.
That's what you're saying.
No. I'll lock them up in a secure safe somewhere outside of my home.
And what happens when
where my daughter can't
them?
walk in and pick them up and accidentally use them?
Play with the doll.
Yeah, there's some bad parenting going on where they're just like, stop going into this room, child. It's like, lock the friggin' door.
Yeah.
Things that
guys.
could kill the whole family.
Yeah.
Honey, I've told you, stop touching that. With the Nun painting, it cracks me up though that he's just like, oh, I just had this dream last night. I'm just gonna draw this little thing, and he's just like this artist. He's like this awesome painter as well. He's just like, look at this artwork. You could sell this in a museum.
I'm really proud of this. I'm gonna hang it up in my office, I think.
Yeah, he's like,
just
I had a
strange.
nightmare of this last night, and here we go. Now it's gonna stay with me forever.
Strange behaviour.
You good? Yep.
I was gonna. If you want to keep talking about the Nun, now's the time to do it.
Yep.
Okay. No, you go.
I was just gonna say that I like this movie. I made myself buy in for this movie. I found this movie quite scary. Like it worked for me. Like at the start when, like you can hear the noises coming out of the tent and stuff like that, and the toy coming up and down the hallway, stuff like that worked pretty well for me. But the thing that didn't work for me was like the whole where they're trying to like make it out that she's making it up, because we see evidence constantly of before that of like, oh no, things are getting thrown around the room. Like we are witnessing that, and then we're supposed to have some kind of doubt, I guess. I had no doubt anywhere, and I don't know why I ever would, because they show these possessions and the objects moving across the room and her floating in the air, like all this stuff, like constantly before that. I don't know how anyone could not believe it.
Yeah, like this movie is. It's something I've noticed. This movie's like over 2 hours. This movie is really long.
Yeah,
because it spends a lot of time doing that, like building this. Like, do we know what's really happening here? And I agree. It's kind of like, yes, we do. We have very explicitly seen what's happening, and I guess part of it is trying to make you angry. You know, trying to make you be like, if only we listen. Why can't everyone trust the Warrens like we do? And make you sort of shake, put your nose up at the police and the average people who aren't believers. It's like, surely you should know that this is. So I agree. It does waste a bit of time. I guess it's to get you emotionally frustrated and more invested. But there is a lot of it. There is a lot of time to spend being like going to the neighbors and like, do you believe us? And they're like, oh yeah, maybe. And it's kind of that constant uncertainty.
It cracked me up when the cops see the chairs move, and she's like. And they're just walking out of the house like, this is beyond us.
Yeah.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
Call some people, but this is definitely beyond our scope.
London's finest.
Yep.
Yeah, I did the whole thing work for you guys with Valak sort of, possessing their family unit? Like he has the dreams and she's trying to take Lorraine away or something, or she's trying to take the daughter, and she comes to Lorraine in a vision where she carves her name in the Bible, and she's obviously influencing Ed enough to paint him. Like, I don't know, what do you guys make of that? I found that sort of the weirdest thing. Like, I don't know why she's attacking his family in England to get to them, and why she's trying to get to them. I don't know, that whole thing's very convoluted.
It doesn't really hold water.
I was waiting for it to come out that it was like the nun that he talked about earlier, because in this movie he talks about when he was a kid, there was this nun that taught him this lesson, and I was like, I thought that's how she was going to figure out the name. She was like, oh my god, it was Judith. Like Judith has turned into a demon. It was the nun that like delivered him or something. And I was kind of expecting, because I was like, oh, he mentioned a nun. I was like, and then he has this vision of this nun, and I was just like, I don't know. I thought it was going to be that, but it's just name of an old demon, It
was just the defiler, just Valak.
Defiling things. Trying to like rope Valak into the whole thing. I think they should have just left her as the creepy painting and then that's your grounds for your spin-off, and then they go have their adventure in England, and that's a separate thing. Similar to Annabelle.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know. It's because you can tell this one has it knows that it's part of a broader franchise, right? It's
Yeah.
like they make them like to you guys, like you guys said, it kind of works. They're making a villain, they're making a face for the horror,
Yeah.
and they're building on it. And I'm like, on one hand, yeah, it's good to have an iconic killer. You know, you've got Freddy's and Jason's and Michael's, like they work. But it's just something I really found just strange, where it's like this specific entity is hunting them for some reason, and it's just the most roundabout way to be like,
Would
get
you
you out
not
of their
hunt
house.
someone
Yeah.
who's like killing all your friends and killing all your demon boys?
I guess
You know?
why would I possess why would I possess a family in America? They're like, Luke, you should go to America and investigate that so I can then get your kids. Like I don't know. It's weird.
Who knows
just,
why demons do what they do, man?
that's true.
You don't want to understand their motives.
Touche.
You know, I
Just
wonder
demon
like
shit.
how the Nun films work, like with that around this story, and same as Annabelle too. I'm guessing Annabelle's all takes place before.
Maybe you
they
should do the
retrieve
research
her.
for us, Luke. You go watch them and let us know.
I'm sure Conan's already done them.
I mean, like I've listened to so many podcasts on the real Annabelle doll. The real Annabelle doll is like it's got an interesting history.
I don't know about that.
It's one of those, like a family had this doll and the doll was haunted and weird stuff happened. And it's just kind of like a history of that, I don't know how the movies do it. The Nun, I think one of them's an origin story, I think. I don't know what the other one is. And
Sure.
yeah, I don't know if I care too much because overall, I don't know if I think I'm less of a Valak fan than you guys. I just found her a bit, I don't know.
Creepy. I wouldn't say I'm a fan of her.
I know you've got photos of her. You've got that painting.
I wouldn't have a
on your
pop
wall.
You keep painting her every day, Luke. It's very strange.
Yeah,
she comes to me in that tree.
Masterpiece, but
yeah.
Yeah,
okay. And what I guess, so did you like the Ed's foretold death, the premonition that Lorraine has?
Yeah, I was fine with all of that. It just didn't need to involve the Nun, right? But like when the lightning strikes the tree and it turns into the thing out of her vision, and it's like, oh shit, he's gonna fall out of the, the second story and get impaled on this, and it's gonna be sick as.
It's gonna be gangster.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
doesn't happen.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why this one. I don't know why I wasn't as in. I know I just said with the first one, I'm like, I watch it all on its terms. I give myself over. This one, I was a lot more reluctant to it. I don't know why. I guess part of it's like, no, maybe that's it. I just don't gel with English people. I believe in freedom is what I believe in.
Yeah.
And so just something about I guess the fact that it's like, we know there is a third movie and we know this franchise goes on. Then when she's like, at any moment you could die, and that's a big driving part of her motivation. I'm like, no, but we know he doesn't die. Even when this movie was fresh, I feel like it was pretty obvious, like he's not going to die here.
Yeah,
because of the nature of horror.
No one dies in these films,
which again is a
no
strength.
Stakes.
There's a big tree stake.
Somebody
I think
dies
it's
in
good
the
that
third film.
That's the thing. But before that, I never felt at threat. I never felt like they were threatened throughout these films. I don't know. I always felt like it was safe.
Yeah, you are right. Like, you're not wrong.
No, it's because you're forgetting
no kid in this house dies. Like, they're haunted for months and with a demon, and none of them die. So
would you want to have to rearrange your room every day though, because it's all been shifted around?
No, I think it's because you think. Sorry, you go.
I was just going to say the scariest thing in that house was that dreary ass backyard. There's that scene where she's sitting on the swing. I'm like, oh, that's a classic British backyard, isn't it? It's just foul.
Like, English council houses are like housing conditioning. Yeah,
not even. The inside of the house, it was straight out of Last of Us. Like the wood was just rotted away. There was just like. Jesus.
Everything's swollen. The laundry is like this literal dungeon under their house where nothing gets dry.
That she let fill with water. It comes to pool, and she's like, "There's a bit of a leak a few weeks ago.
Not her best.
Sorted out. My house is gonna sink into the floor soon." But
yeah, it's a bit weird. But hey, her husband left, so go easy.
She's a bit out of control. Yeah, going through some stuff.
2 notes. That's a good way to anchor a lot of it. Like, having the family drama is really good and effective. Like, this family's, because it makes them feel more united because their father left, and so it makes it more sad that they're getting possessed. But I think, I don't know, the saving grace in this, that you said there's no stakes because nobody dies. I think what works is because they established early in the first one the infestation, oppression, possession thing, and we didn't mention this. But he talks about like what's the point of possession? What's the deal with hauntings? And he spells it out. It takes time. You have to infest. The demon will infest your area. It will oppress you all, and then it will possess the person. And so by not actually having people die, it does a really good job of, by not having anybody die with that established, it's like, okay, this is going to go bad eventually. And so we're trying to stop this from happening. We're trying to stop the possession. And I think if you have people dying from, random plates going around, it undoes that. Like it's the promise of fear, It's like, this has got to be a slow build until the ultimate showdown where someone gets possessed. And you see that in the first one where someone almost dies. In this one, not as much. But I don't know. Because what you're saying is right. Usually you need to have stakes. You need people to die. In these ones, I didn't feel that was necessary, which is interesting.
They just kill the dog with no problem, straight up. I have a problem just killing a dog, but humans, they like to play with them for hours.
Well,
months.
That's just a regular Friday night for me.
Animal cruelty.
Yeah, good jokes. Some scenes here. Oh, there's a Ouija board scene, and I had a note here. Like say, don't touch them. I've been trained from my conservative Christianity to not touch Ouija boards. Those things are just bad news.
Yep.
As soon as he pulls that out, it's like, oh yeah, there's some evil going on.
Yep. The
tents are really cool, sort of like horror. Like it's a horror motif they keep dapping into.
I missed Mr. That face didn't.
The crooked man.
The crooked man.
Oh no, I thought it was great. Terrifying.
They showed too much of him.
That's the thing. It looks, if it was just like a quick shot or like something in the background, it's like, what is that? But the fact that he's just like in front and he's like, I'm gonna get you. It's like, okay, you're a bit silly.
All right, you crooked bastard.
You silly.
You silly git. Patrick Wilson channeling the spirit of Elvis. Really good.
Yeah, 100%. That was a good scene. Yeah,
really nice, really warming. And then just some possession shit gets going. It's like, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
But Patrick Wilson just needs more. He needs to be given more stuff.
Watch Bone Tomahawk. He's great in that.
Oh yeah, I haven't seen that.
Highly recommended.
How did I do? We touched on it already, but it happens again in this. They're waiting a long time for the Vatican to authorize the exorcism. And they're just like, we can't do anything until the Vatican gets here. All right, we'll just let him be tormented. And then he's, it's like, you've got to do it, Ed. And he's like, but I can't. I'm not ordained. And then he's like, tears out his cross and his holy water. He's like, I'll do it.
In case of emergencies.
break cross in case of emergencies. Break your Latin out.
Pretty sure that's a Simpsons joke, actually. But
it is. I don't know. It's just it's going down that path of kind of goofiness. Getting the third one, I think, does more in the next movie we'll talk about. But it's like the army. You got to contact the army. And it's like, we need reinforcements from the Vatican with their holy bullets. And it's like, no,
they'll never get here in time. We've got to fight them off ourselves.
Exactly. It's like, I don't think that a few things did work for me in this one. Do you guys have anything else I've missed or worth mentioning?
No, I was getting Gollum vibes from the girl when she was, her voice was changing when she was on TV. But other than that,
that's
no notes.
That was a cool scene. How they sort of show it all from. They show it from Ed's perspective. They blur us, so again, you're not quite sure what's happening. But to your earlier point, it's like, but we know there are demons here, so we don't really need to not know it. But it's kind of having its cake and eating it too.
Yeah.
All right, The Conjuring 3. After the exorcism of a young boy in Connecticut seemingly goes right, young Arnie Johnson gets mad possessed. And as this possession takes hold, Arnie ends up killing a man under the influence of the demonic spirit, which leads to the first American court case where possession was used as a defense. Luke, you had a point you wanted to make about this movie?
So, I know this is rated the least of all of them. I really enjoyed this one. I don't know why. I like this. I enjoyed the aspect of dealing with the legal system and like an actual murder case, where they're coming in as like experts to discuss this like this murder mystery sort of thing. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed Arnie and like his character arc and seeing that, the real threat of he's in prison, this thing's going to make him do this to himself. It's like the threat of that and trying to stop that from happening. I really enjoyed. It's funny though, this movie has a unique thing where I was watching it and I was rooting for Arnie, and I was like, come on. And then like, that thing happens in court and it's like, okay, awesome. Good. I was like, cause he was possessed. Like, that's good that he got off, And then afterwards I was like, wait, this was real. I was like, that mother, what? I was like, bullshit. I was like, that dude murdered and got away with it.
No, but he did get away with it. He still did.
He still got time, but not full time because of, and this is the thing, they threw out, like when you read the actual details, like the judge threw out the demonic thing straight away.
Yeah.
But they still were brought in as character reference, and it played a big role in getting him the reduced sentence and stuff like that he got. But that's the thing, reading about the actual story afterwards, I was like, man, this is bullshit. He just claimed this. He murdered some dude that he was getting frisky with his girl, and then he's just like, oh, sorry, a demon made me do it.
These damn demons.
And then like I was like, that's bullcrap. It was such a weird twist where I was rooting for that character so much watching the movie, and 5 minutes later I was like, oh, that's messed up. I was like, I can't believe that happened. And it made me be like, oh, Ed and Lorraine, them swindlers. Look at them rocking up to court and like, oh no, this boy he is possessed. Like,
see a boy had the devil in him.
If the glove don't fit, you must acquit. And I was just like, oh man, you swindlers. Trying to trick people. But I enjoyed this movie. I was coming in expecting, because I'd seen the lower scores, that this was going to be bad compared to the other ones, but I quite enjoyed it.
Ryan's thoughts?
Yeah, I didn't mind this one. I think moving away from a kind of more pure haunted house movie makes it a weaker film, in my opinion. Too much of this movie happens during the middle of the day, maybe, I don't know. But there's just, it felt there was a lot less horror, and I felt like it was because it wasn't a haunted house movie for the most part. They dabble in it a little bit, like there's, I thought, they're gonna, when they cut back to them first moving in, I thought, we're gonna have a haunted house movie now for the next hour, and then it'll cut back to the court case or something like that, but it didn't.
It becomes a procedural essentially.
Yeah,
doesn't it? Like because Ed goes to Boston to try to solve the crime, and he's like, they're trying to map out what's going on, and they're trying to figure out where the killer is, or where the curse is.
Are coming from, and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
and that final act is like straight out of Law and Order almost, where like, they split up, and one of them goes to question their witness. Oh shit, this is actually the person doing it. And then he's got to rush to save them. That's
what I love, though. I was like, this is
straight out of
Where's
SVU, though.
I was like, this is great.
This is the thing. This is the hammiest one. It's the goofiest one. Like, it strays into half-hour TV sort of stuff. Like, there's this great X-Files episode that deals with a cult of Satanists. And the whole time I was like, the X-Files did it much better, where they combine procedurals with, like, this satanic subplot. And I don't know, it's not a fair comparison. They're very different. But the whole time I was just like, it's just a lot more interesting. Because this movie is... There are parts that I like. I do enjoy kind of I like the, Ed and his offsider who's in every film with him. Like they're, like the young guy with the sick leather jacket.
I don't think he has a name.
just friend or buddy.
As far as I know.
Yep.
Like, I like them, sort of going across the country being like, who's sending the cursed devil totems? Like, that's fun. But then there's things like the scene where they go into the morgue and the giant bloated corpse is possessed and running after them, and it's like, this is really kind of dumb.
That's the scariest stuff of the whole trilogy. I was like, oh man, that's creepy. That big thing there running around, and like, that's the creepiest stuff, I think.
It is, but this is where the clash for me really happens, where, like you said, this movie is saying, all right, satanic possession is just a thing these people can do. So then it's like the court case is a farce. It's like, this guy was possessed. But then you're like, no, wait. No, this is bullshit. Like I say, this is bullshit. That's not what happened. In real life, that's whether or not if you believe fully in this, sure, it works. But even as someone who sort of believes in some sort of influence like this, I'm like, no, that's not how it works. This guy just killed somebody. And like I say, these charlatans possessed. So all of that kind of, there was that tension was really grating on me this whole time, where I'm like, this is crime busters out on the rain cracking a satanic cult where there's this absolute evil woman in black, like who's a necromancer. She literally reanimates corpses. It's just dumb. It's complete silly territory.
That's what I think does it for me, is the fact that it goes into it that much that it's not me trying to suspend my belief, because it's not like set in this thing that's like it was. I was absolutely like, okay, this isn't real. This isn't. But which is why I completely turned against the character after the movie. I was like, that's right, this was real. I was like, this is a load of crap. But as watching, I feel like I was able to enjoy it more because it was just going with it. It was going full throttle with it. It was being a bit hammy, where it was like, okay, yeah, look, she's rising up corpses that are like running at her. And I was like, this is great. And he's like trying to stop her right before the corpse gets to her. It's like, I was like, okay, this is cool. This is cool. And like in the underground lair, under the house.
Yeah.
And it's like
tunnels.
And he gets blinded and he's swinging the hammer around. I'm like, it's so cheesy. It is 100% Law and Order. I feel like I've seen Stabler get blinded and she's trying to convince him, and he's gotten drugged by, and I'm like, this is cool. But that's, I don't know, made me enjoy the ride more because I wasn't taking it as seriously, I guess. I don't know. But
no, that makes sense. Yeah, like it's like when you see a movie about zombies. It's like they don't exist. And so there's something just more like you can sort of let yourself accept it because you're like, and I get what it's hard to describe. I get what you mean. There is a suspension of disbelief that comes with that. And in this one, it's
not trying to convince me.
Yeah, no, you're right. But then the court case stuff kind of becomes the court case stuff just becomes more frustrating.
Yeah,
it does. Especially afterwards, I turned on Arnie real quick.
True. But I found this movie like creepier up until the point where he does the killing, right? Like that first exorcism was pretty creepy, and then just where he's like feeling the effects of it in the days after, like he's really sick, and I'm just like, oh crap, what's going to happen? Like, I don't know. I found that more tense, and again, I think it goes back to like my conservative Christian upbringing, where like, oh yeah, maybe,
yeah. You're right.
Where he's being haunted, and the lights are going off in the house, and the thing crawls out in really quick in the dark. It's cool. That's creepy.
See, the scenes with all of his scenes, like when he's in the hospital and it just keeps getting darker, and like his hallucinations, they're all really good. But like you said, Griner, it's better when it's a haunted house movie. It's better when it's just in that classic horror territory. I don't think it's worth noting this isn't direct. This is the first one to not be directed by James Wan. This is directed by someone else named Michael Chavez, and he is not the same. Like, I can't imagine James Wan would do the same. Like, I think that's why it feels kind of weird, where there's elements that work, and then there's this other tone of crime busting.
Is that director known for his Law and Order episodes? Is that?
If he did a Law and Order SVU, I'd be like, oh my God.
Imagine that. He directed a lot of the. He's directed The Nun too, and he's directed the bad ones of the franchise. Like The Curse of La Llorona is meant to be awful, and he directed that. So he's kind of the bad go-to of the franchise now. But he doesn't look to have made any Law and Order episodes yet. Doesn't mean he didn't grow up on them. The iconography is cool. I like the curse totems they get, where it's like jawbones to creepy ass stuff. That's all really effective. I love iconography like that. Got True Detective vibes,
The waterbed.
Yeah, the waterbed scene was really good.
Yeah.
Is it? Who is possessing them in this? This isn't Valak. Is it just the
devil?
It's just the devil directly, like Satan himself is in that waterbed.
It's a demon being summoned by the chick in black.
And he takes her soul at the end.
No way.
So cool. She gets all twisted, and he's like,
no way. There's a name, Balaam or something, or Balal. Am I making this up?
Maybe
they name this, don't they?
Theon Greyjoy.
That's a weird reference. I don't know. All right, I'll have to find out later. Luke, one of your favorites is in this movie, John Noble.
Yeah,
yeah,
he's great. It's like he's unsettling. Like the whole time, it's just like, oh man, I don't trust this dude. And especially at the end, when the light comes on and he's just sitting at his desk all sinister, you're like, oh, he's evil. And he is, but he turns like around, obviously, and he's like, he knew he was just trying to protect his crazy ass daughter.
He felt like a guy he felt like this is what Ed and Lorraine are going to become like with their little room of horrors. Like he's just
100%.
he's been around this stuff too long. It's kind of cursed him too.
Yeah, he started to become evil. Yeah, that's
He
a
started
good
to buy
choice.
into the cult. Yeah, I don't know.
Because that's obviously the what they're going for, right? Is to make you think, oh, he's doing it all. It's a good fake out because you're right. He's such an unsettling sort of man. Just his smile is not a happy smile.
Yeah, that smile.
It's creepy as shit.
Yeah,
but I like seeing him getting work.
He's not a very noble man.
No, ironically enough. Yeah, I don't know. I really didn't have that good of a time with this movie. Which is a shame because in a way I like the genre mishmash. I like the idea of like procedural cross horror possession film. I just think by combining it with the court case elements, like it doesn't go deep into that. And
I feel like the court thing's only the last scene, really. Like there's, I guess there's the timer aspect of like he's going to get death row if you can't prove this.
I needed Ed in that courtroom yelling, "I object."
Yes.
That's what I wanted. Like I'd go all the way with it then at least.
And the Lord object.
Exactly, and they'd be like, "Ed, you're not a lawyer," and he's like, "I've got the one true law, God." And then he busts some shit.
And
that's the thing.
Has
like
a bigger hammer than yours.
like the court case itself is more interesting story, I think, than a lone witch is hexing people. And so I would have really, but I guess it's just such a different movie. It's not an Ed and Lorraine story then, and you can't do that in this franchise, which is why like it's a bad choice of them to make. Try to tell this story because I just don't think it's an interesting story. Like the whole time I was like, cut all the court case out or make the movie all about that. Because they're kind of doing three things. They're doing a court, like there's that scene where they go and see the lawyer, and she's like, "I can use this thing if you've got to provide me some evidence." Blah blah blah. So it's not a big amount, but there is enough that they keep referencing and they keep going back to it and being
well,
like,
they go and solve that other case too, like in the town over the county line or whatever it is. Like yeah, with some really weird like green screen or something going on when she's that flip looks strange. Like
Yep. So it's I don't think it works that well for me, but I see what you say, Luke. Like it is kind of more fun. Like this is one you could sort of turn on in the background and just have going.
I feel like you could rewatch, but
yeah,
second one's too long. I feel like, but yeah,
second one is way too long.
Yeah,
2 hours and 15 minutes. We need shorter films, people.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, should we rate them then?
I'll go because I probably got the weird rating.
Yeah,
I'll say 3, 1. No, I don't know. I'd probably say 1. I'd probably say 1, 3, 2. But if you guys hadn't shamed me so much, I'd probably be saying 3, 1, 2.
You do you. Be who you are.
Yeah.
You can do 3.
So yeah, I had the most fun with 3. I feel like it was the easiest watch.
Yeah. I don't think we're going to agree on this at all. Because I bought into number 2, I'm going to go 2, 1, 3. I think.
But you've ruined it for yourself because you've read the whole.
Yeah, I know. Look, I won't read Hereditary, and I'll go watch that and see how I go.
Oh,
no, that would generally
watch Hereditary. Watch Hereditary.
No, I
actually would like to. No, I'll be fine. All
right. If I don't hear from you in 6 weeks, though,
6 weeks,
Hereditary,
and then tomorrow, then I get a call. I get a call from your wife, and she's like, "He's not speaking anymore." I'm like, "Yeah,
Hereditary and Midsummer, double header."
Yeah, I should.
But okay. So I think we're completely different because I would be 1, 2, 3. Like I think they just get worse. So you got 3, 1, 2, 2, 1, 3, and 1, 2, 3. Look at this. There's a lot about us and what we want from horror, really.
We're very diverse.
Yes,
yeah,
very diverse group of white guys.
We have a lot of perspectives to this.
Yeah, exactly.
I like it. All right. Was there anything I forgot to mention, or anything else you guys wanted to say?
No.
I'm glad I don't have a creepy basement.
Yeah. Basements and attics just
bad news.
Yeah, don't have them. And Ouija boards. Just get rid of them. If you have them in the house, kids, throw them away. Send them back to hell.
We've got some creepy dolls.
Yeah,
My
get rid of them
my
too.
daughter loves creepy dolls. She bought one on a trip once, on a road trip from a thrift shop, the really old doll. And I was like, why? I was like, when we're rocking up to this cabin in the woods, I was like, why'd you buy a doll?
That's the real question: is why did you, her guardian,
I
be like,
didn't
"Oh, you
let
shouldn't buy
her.
this, but I'll buy it for you"? What do you mean? You gave it? She has money, her own money.
No, my wife bought it.
Okay. Well, look, when the house gets haunted, you can always just rub her nose in that.
Just blame it for her.
And be like, this was your
When I'm
fault.
dead from beyond the grave.
Just come back and haunt them all.
Yeah, it was the
Oh,
doll.
all right. Well, that was a Conjuring. What are we doing next week? Did we?
Well, speaking of short films,
Hmm.
I believe we're doing Killers of the Flower Moon next.
That is the plan.
The longest movie ever. Collectively, almost as long as all three of these films put
I
together.
think so. Yeah.
All right, so we're doing Marty Scorsese's recent epic, Killers of the Flower Moon.
Yeah.
Very
I'm keen.
exciting. Yeah, very keen to unpack that with you guys.
Don't go to a movie where they're doing an intermission. They'll sue you.
Yeah.
Yeah, Marty.
I read about that today. It's stupid.
Pee your pants.
So weird.
Wear a diaper.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, not his best take, but we'll talk about that definitely. All right, well, thank you for joining us on The Good, the Bad, and the Worst. If you like this podcast, please like, share, and subscribe. Follow us on wherever you follow them. Rate us on Spotify and subscribe. Makes a big difference. This podcast is brought to you by my book, The Taste of Iron. That's it there. The sequel is coming. That'll be out before Christmas, so no, don't pre-order. Pre-orders are weird. Don't do that. Just
Starring Ed and Lorraine.
yeah, ghost-busting romantic comedy.
Exactly.
Tell all your friends about us and join us next time. We'll see you later.
Happy Halloween.
Peace.